Hey there, ready to unlock some serious persuasion power? Today, we're diving into the world of suggestion and exploring what factors can make it truly effective.
That's right. And we're not just talking about like swinging pocket watches or, stage hypnosis.
Right.
We're going deeper, uncovering the science behind why some suggestions stick while others, well, they fall flat.
Our guide on this journey is the work of Bulgarian academic Georgi Lozanov, a pioneer in the field of suggestipedia. He actually used suggestion and hypnotic techniques to supercharge learning. And get this, his research suggests people could learn hundreds of new words in a day using his methods.
That's right. His work was rooted in scientific rigor, like his dissertation on hypnosis, packed with data, not just theories.
Wow.
And the results were groundbreaking. Think about the possibilities if you could learn that quickly.
Yeah.
It's like unlocking a hidden superpower within yourself.
Okay, so how do we tap into that power?
Well, Lozanov identified three major barriers that can block the effectiveness of suggestion. He called them the rational logical barrier, the intuitive affective barrier, and the moral ethical barrier. Think of them as mental locks that need to be unlocked for suggestion to truly take hold.
Ooh, mental locks. I like that.
Yeah.
So it's like we have these barriers in place.
It's a brilliant way to frame it.
Yeah.
Let's start with the rational logical barrier.
Okay.
This one's all about our brain's built-in, logic detector. We naturally reject suggestions that contradict our understanding of reality.
So if I'm trying to convince my friend who loves data and facts to try a new meditation app, I shouldn't just talk about how relaxed it makes me feel.
Exactly. You need to present evidence, maybe research on the app's effectiveness in reducing stress or improving focus. Frame it in a way that aligns with their logical worldview. That's the key to unlocking that first barrier.
Makes sense. It's like speaking their language.
Precisely. Now let's move on to the intuitive affective barrier. This one's trickier because it deals with our subconscious, our gut reactions.
Oh, interesting.
Have you ever had that experience where a decision seemed perfect on paper? The right job, the right house, but something in your gut just screamed, no.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I almost bought a car once that ticked all the boxes, but it just felt off.
Yeah.
I couldn't explain it, but I walked away and later found out it had been in a major accident.
That's the intuitive affective barrier in action. It's rooted in past experiences, even those we might not consciously remember. Lozanov illustrates this with a story about buying an apartment. Even with all the logical boxes checked, an uneasy feeling led him to reject the deal. Turns out the building had a history of structural issues.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So how do we navigate this barrier if it's not always about logic?
It's about acknowledging the power of intuition, both in ourselves and others. Don't dismiss those gut feelings. They might be trying to tell you something important based on subconscious patterns you haven't recognized yet.
It's like our intuition is a warning system, flashing a red light based on subtle cues we might miss otherwise.
Exactly. Now, the third barrier, the moral ethical barrier, comes into play when a suggestion clashes with someone's deeply held values and beliefs.
So if I'm discussing a controversial topic like a new policy with a colleague who has strong opposing views, I need to tread carefully.
Absolutely. Lozanov emphasizes respecting individual moral frameworks. For example, imagine you're trying to encourage a friend to try a new food they perceive as weird. Even if your intentions are good, if you dismiss their concerns or mock their beliefs, you'll trigger that moral ethical barrier, making them less receptive to your suggestion.
It sounds like empathy and active listening are crucial here. Instead of judging, we need to try to understand where they're coming from.
Precisely. And this applies to so many areas of life, whether we're trying to persuade a client, mentor a student, or even just have a meaningful conversation with a loved one. Acknowledging and respecting their values is key to unlocking that third barrier.
All right, we've covered the three barriers to suggestion: rational logical, intuitive affective, and moral ethical. But how do these actually play out in real life? Can you give us some examples?
Absolutely. Let's revisit that rational logical barrier. Remember, it's about avoiding contradictions and speaking the listener's language. Think about negotiating a salary raise.
Yeah.
If you approach your boss solely with emotional arguments, I work really hard, I deserve this,
Yeah.
it might not be effective, especially with a data-driven manager.
Right. So instead of just saying, I deserve more money, I should come prepared with concrete evidence of my contributions and how they've benefited the company.
Exactly. Show them the numbers, like increased sales, successful projects, positive client feedback. Frame your request in a way that aligns with their logical worldview. That's how you unlock that rational logical barrier and increase your chances of success.
Makes sense. It's like presenting a compelling case,
Mm.
not just making a plea.
Precisely. Now let's look at that intuitive affective barrier in action. Remember, this is all about those gut feelings and subconscious patterns. Imagine you're leading a team and need to choose between two project proposals.
Okay.
One seems flawless on paper, while the other has a few flaws, but something about it just feels right.
I've definitely been there. It can be so frustrating when logic and intuition are at odds. How do we know which voice to trust?
That's where self-awareness comes in. Lozanov suggests paying attention to those subtle cues, like your body language, your energy levels, even dreams. It's like our intuition is sending us smoke signals, but we need to learn how to decipher them.
So if I'm feeling inexplicably drawn to a particular project, even if it seems riskier on the surface, I should explore those feelings further instead of just dismissing them.
Exactly. Maybe talk to people who've worked on similar projects. Research potential challenges. See if your initial gut feeling still holds true. By combining intuition with thoughtful analysis, you can make more informed decisions.
It's like having a superpower, being able to tap into a deeper level of understanding beyond pure logic.
Precisely. Now, let's examine the moral ethical barrier in a real-world scenario.
Okay.
Imagine you're trying to persuade your family to adopt a more sustainable lifestyle.
Right.
If you come across as judgmental or preachy, like lecturing them about their choices, you'll likely trigger that moral ethical barrier.
It's like that saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Right.
Pushing too hard often backfires.
Exactly. Instead, try finding common ground. Maybe you highlight the financial benefits of saving energy, or the health benefits of eating local produce.
Right.
Frame your suggestions in a way that aligns with their values and motivations.
So it's about understanding what matters to them and showing how adopting more eco-friendly habits can actually support those values, not contradict them.
Precisely. It's about building bridges, not walls. Remember, persuasion isn't about coercion or manipulation. It's about finding that sweet spot where your suggestion resonates with the other person's worldview and helps them see the benefits of taking action.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, before we move on, I want to circle back to that fascinating concept of infantile perception that we touched on earlier. Lozanov believed we could tap into this childlike state of mind to enhance our receptivity to new ideas. How can we actually do that?
It's about reawakening that sense of wonder and curiosity that we often lose as we get older. Think about how children approach learning.
Yeah.
They're not afraid to ask questions, experiment, get messy. They embrace the joy of discovery.
That reminds me of when I was learning to paint as a kid. I wasn't worried about creating masterpieces. I just loved the process of mixing colors and seeing what happened.
Exactly, and that's the key. To unlock that childlike openness, try incorporating playfulness and creativity into your learning process. Maybe you take a drawing class, learn a new instrument, or simply spend time in nature observing the world around you with fresh eyes.
So it's not just about learning new facts, but about cultivating a mindset of openness and curiosity, approaching each experience with a sense of adventure and wonder.
Precisely. And that's where Lozanov's work gets really exciting. It suggests that we all have the potential to become more effective learners and communicators, not by forcing information in, but by unlocking the inherent power of suggestion within ourselves and others.
Okay, we've explored Lozanov's 3 barriers to suggestion, seen how they operate in everyday situations, and even uncovered how tapping into infantile perception can enhance learning. But the big question is, how can all of this knowledge actually help us?
That's the key, isn't it? It's about turning these insights into action. First, let's remember that understanding these barriers can make you a more persuasive and effective communicator. Whether you're pitching an idea, teaching a skill, or resolving a conflict, by recognizing which barrier might be at play, you can tailor your approach accordingly.
So it's like having a secret weapon for navigating those tricky conversations where you feel like you're just not getting through.
Exactly. Imagine you're trying to convince your team to adopt a new workflow.
Okay.
If you sense resistance, ask yourself, is it a logical disconnect? Are they worried about the learning curve?
Right.
Or perhaps they fear it'll disrupt their routines. Once you identify the potential barrier, you can address it head on.
So instead of just pushing harder, I should take a step back and see things from their perspective.
Precisely. Provide clear explanations, address their concerns, and emphasize the benefits in a way that resonates with their values. You might be surprised how much smoother the process becomes when you approach it with this awareness.
It's like those aha moments in therapy when suddenly you understand why you react a certain way and can start to shift those patterns.
That's a great analogy. And remember, these insights can also empower you as a learner. Think about a time when you struggled to grasp a new concept.
Yeah.
Maybe you hit a wall learning a language, felt overwhelmed by a technical skill, or just couldn't get yourself to stick with a new habit.
Oh, I've definitely been there. It can be so frustrating when you feel stuck. How can understanding these barriers help with that?
Well, instead of just labeling yourself as, bad at math or not a creative type, ask yourself which barrier might be holding you back. Is it a logical disconnect?
Hmm.
Do you need to break down the concept into smaller, more digestible steps? Or maybe it's an intuitive resistance rooted in past experiences.
Like if I had a negative experience with a harsh math teacher in school, maybe that's fueling a subconscious fear of failure that's preventing me from fully engaging with the material.
Exactly. And once you identify the root cause, you can start to address it. Maybe you find a more supportive learning environment, work with a tutor, or simply practice self-compassion and celebrate small wins along the way.
It's almost like those barriers are signposts pointing us toward what we need to address in order to move forward. Instead of seeing them as roadblocks, we can use them as guides.
That's a powerful way to reframe it. And finally, remember that idea of tapping into infantile perception, that childlike curiosity and openness to new experiences.
Yeah, that was one of the most fascinating parts for me. But honestly, as an adult, it feels like that playfulness and sense of wonder fades away sometimes. How do we bring it back?
It starts with recognizing that it's still there within us, waiting to be rekindled. Make time for activities that spark joy and curiosity. Explore a new hobby. Take a walk in nature. Listen to music that moves you. Anything that helps you reconnect with that sense of wonder and open yourself up to new possibilities.
So it's about carving out space for those activities that make us feel alive. Those things we loved as kids, but maybe put aside as we got older.
Exactly. It's about reclaiming that inner child and allowing them to be your guide. You might be surprised by the creative energy and learning capacity you unlock in the process.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. So as we wrap up, what's the key takeaway you want to leave our listener with?
Remember this. Understanding the power of suggestion isn't about manipulation or control.
Right.
It's about unlocking potential, both within ourselves and others. It's about becoming more effective communicators, more resilient learners, and more open to the world around us.
It's like we've been given a set of keys to unlock hidden doors within ourselves and in our interactions with others.
Beautifully said. And remember, the journey of exploration doesn't end here. Keep questioning, keep experimenting, and keep diving deeper into the fascinating world of the human mind.
And that, my friend, is the power of the deep dive. Thanks for joining us.